Welcome to Honest Scholars. I'll be interacting with you about the personal tips that you need to know, some of the practical steps you need to take to become a successful researcher. These are proven methods, these are proven tips, and doesn't matter your background. Once you can utilize this and incorporate them into your work, you can become a successful researcher, and the whole pressure and process of research becomes less cumbersome for you. What are the steps and what are the tips? Steps number 1, you need to define your research question. Research question is like the nucleus of your work, literally speaking. It is the heart of your work. If it is not well defined, if it is not precise, if it's not narrowed down and concise, you are not able to get value, and you are not able to drive that which you intend to drive in your project. So what is that thing that motivates your work? What is that thing you intend to interrogate? That's your research question. What do you intend to examine? So that has to come from some background knowledge. So, and that is why we researchers always encourage that the research question has to be narrowed down. It doesn't have to be, it cannot be a simple yes or no. It shouldn't be ambiguous, shouldn't be equivocal, shouldn't be something that is commonplace. However, research question must engage analysis of the sources you are going to be using and the criticality of such sources. How you engage with those sources critically. That's the kind of thing that a research question is about. So you cannot ask, did the phone fall down? That's not a research question. Yeah, it's a question, but that's not a research question, and you must understand the difference between the two. So questions like having two variables combined together, maybe your dependent and independent variable, like say, what is the influence of immigrants on economic growth in Southeast Asia? Or maybe it's a country you want to do, or you're doing comparative analysis of two countries. So your research question has to be narrowed down into that which provokes you. And that's why we call it something that triggers synthesis and analysis of sources and of resources, of materials you are going to be engaging with. So that's how your research question should look like. And again, that also accounts for how you define your hypothesis. And again, hypothesis has to be derived from your research question. It is not independent of the research question. It has to be based on what research question you set out to achieve. So that informs how you choose your topic. It has to be manageable. It has to be specific to that which you intend to interrogate and research about. So hypothesis, you've got to have your null hypothesis. You've got to have the hypothesis 1, 2, 3, depending on what your supervisor asks. Some you may have to have up to 4. Some it may be 3. Some it may be 2. But they have to be derived, which is the essential thing. Is that they have to be derived from your research question. So having said that, then what is the next line of action? Once you have defined your hypothesis and your research question, and you have composed a topic that is manageable, a specific topic that you can relate with, that is focused and narrowed down to that which you intend to explore. Now is the whole idea about the literature review. Literature review is the most critical aspect of research. Literature review is not a narration of existing ideas. It is not a descriptive, it is more a critical analysis where you engage with existing ideas, existing philosophies, existing theories, and you interrogate them not only to counter them, but to provide more explanation, to provide more analysis and more synthesis of what has been said. and to also drive some implication of what has not been said. So the first thing is to gather your background information and knowledge of the topic you are even investigating in the first place. There is no topic that has been exhausted. So every topic that has been treated in social science, in pure science, is open to review. And that is why we call it research as an ongoing process. So have your background understanding of what you are researching about, of the context of the topic you are researching about. So when you have this background knowledge, it helps you to narrow down to what materials are relevant and which are not relevant, and what are the gaps that are left that have not been explored. So if, for example, past research has investigated how poverty, economic growth, or income, household income, how all of these factors influence immigration from, say, sub-Saharan Africa or from Asia into North America. Now you could take a look at what are the gaps in terms of what are the limitations of those studies, and you could explore other factors. Maybe all of those factors influence, or they don't even influence at all. But again, it has to be based on what data you have and what the existing literature have opened you up to. And that's why we call it critical engagement with existing ideas. That's what literature review is all about. So when you do that, it gives you opportunity to narrow down your search into what works, what does not work, what is relevant and what is not relevant. The next item has to be how you organize your sources. And organizing your sources involves you using some managing, how you use and manage resources, how you are able to streamline your ideas towards what works and what does not work. And again, you have many tools that will help you to track some of those sources, so that when you have all of them organized and stored in a place, you could easily pull them out whenever you need them, and that they become very useful for your subsequent work. So you know which sources go into chapter 1, into chapter 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So you don't have to model things up or mix things up. At the end of the day, you have too many things you are doing within a context of maybe 1500 or 1600 or 1000 word project. So manage that. You have some of those tools you can use, Zotero, HandNote, you have Mendeley. All of those can help you manage your sources, and you won't have overblown sources that might not be relevant to your work in the final analysis. Now, develop a research plan and timeline. Again, you won't want to build a house without having the cost of how much it's going to cost you, what and when and who is going to be needed for what. So that is exactly how a research plan and timeline is. When are you starting chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, data analysis, findings, interpretation, and conclusion, and all that? So you've got to have timeline for all that. And again, the length of each of your chapters will determine how much time you want to commit to each of them. And again, the literature review, I keep emphasizing the literature review because it's the heart of your work, really. When you pick your research question and you're able to narrow down your research question, when you get to the literature review, there is the need for you to engage it very critically, to engage existing ideas very critically, and the research plan will guide you on that, so that you don't spend so much time on reviewing literature. At the end of the day, it exhausts your time. So stay on track and avoid last minute flushes and rushes. So that's very important. So have deadlines for each of your work, and that will guide every process you want to take going forward. Now, you want to prioritize quality over quantity. Again, that's also about focus. That's about streamlining. That's about narrowing down your search. So which materials are reliable, which are relevant, which have some biases among them, which one are peer-reviewed articles, which one are not peer-reviewed articles, which one was carried out 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. So you can manage from there. You can begin to look at the trends of the discussion and ideas that have been generated over time. So that's very important that you prioritize quality, and that's why you don't have to go into so many sources. Some may not be relevant. So when you have the focus in your research question and you engage your literature review very critically, you'll be able to know which ones are relevant to your work, and that will help you to rely on quality and credible sources. So that's why it is important to look for quality over quantity sources. Now, analyze and synthesize your information. Again, this is also very critical to your work. Combining insights from multiple sources, from the sources that are for your research and sources that are against your research. And what I mean by against your research is that sources that argue against your research. So you don't have to look for sources that favor your ideas alone. You have to look for sources that also antagonize in a way. Antagonize your position. So that helps you to have a comprehensive view and to have a balanced analysis of everything you want to do. So identify connections, contrasts, and patterns in the data that have been presented, in the ideas that have been presented, in the theory that have been generated over time. So don't simply summarize sources. That's not the work of a researcher. You don't summarize sources. You engage critically in sources and you synthesize ideas and analyze them so that you know where those gaps will be and whether those gaps are worth exploring in the first place. Now the final point I'm going to make to you is that when you have done all of the good work you've done in your research, crediting sources, crediting authors, crediting previous researchers, crediting organizations, crediting institutions. Now, when you have done all of that and you've done your draft over draft upon draft upon draft upon draft, the next item has to be about reviewing, revise, and reflect. Reviewing the work again, look at, revisit it regularly and look at areas where you think your argument has not been strengthened or fortified by the theories you are using. And that's why we talked about you having the whys and the hows. Those two are very important when you are doing your research. Why are you doing it? And why did he say it? How do you want to carry it out? The causal mechanisms, very, very important. So what are the theory you're going to use to support your argument or to counter existing argument or to corroborate existing arguments or to critique existing arguments and all of that. So edit your work, proofread your work, seek feedback, have peer review, give it to maybe any of your professors or any of your scholarly person who could also look at what you have done, to look at areas that need to be edited, maybe in terms of grammar, maybe in terms of structure, maybe in terms of subheadings, maybe in terms of how you even arrange some of your ideas, even your arguments. Sometimes you could argue back and forth. At the end of the day, you are antagonizing yourself back and forth, and it doesn't make much sense. So when you have a third eye to your work, they help you review it, they help you highlight some of the areas that are not properly coherent in a way. So that helps you to improve your work. I hope you found this video very helpful, and you could go to our social media pages. Go to X at Honest Scholars, go to TikTok at Honest Scholars, go to Facebook at Honest Scholars, on Instagram at Honest Scholars. We are there for you to help you. We are there for you to assist you, and you could get value for it. See you next time.